All right, I'm going to try this one more time. I think I should be able to get the camera to stay in this upright position instead of the widescreen view. Seems to be a bit better for taking a look at the documents that I'm trying to show here. Okay, so I'm starting at the start of my stack of notes from the Homewood Health Center. My notes are a lot more interesting than the doctor's because this is what actually happened there. Little details, and this is just, I have a whole bunch of different stacks, but this is one category. This is like the notes of events that happened there that I would hold these notes up to the camera, which is why they're all written in big print. So, there's no audio recording in the mental health center, so there's basically no record of what's gone down there, like what people are saying. So the doctor, at least my doctor, just feels he could write whatever the fuck he wants and it will omit anything that didn't fit his mental health diagnosis that he had planned for me. All right. So this is, I guess, is this chronological? This is March 13th that I wrote this, so I think this stack is fairly chronological, but I've shuffled it so many friggin' times, like when I was at the CCB hearings. So I'm just going to read through all this stuff. Incompetent Dr. Vazdev is well aware that since Wednesday, March 10th, our first meeting, Form 2 has false info and I have video proof. My credit payments will fail, causing me massive loss. My truck will be towed. My health card and my license are in the truck. My business will fail and my personal possessions will be lost. Business accounts will be suspended. I will be unable to get my new address by the end of the month, so I'll be homeless. I will be unable to switch my address on ODSP, driver's license, banking and credit, business, insurance, many accounts, passport, government documents. And this is my reasoning for him to let me on the internet, which he never did. And that is part of the reason that this was so difficult, is because all my credit cards and all sorts of shit was fucked up when I left, because he wouldn't let me on the internet to fix all my real life problems. There are no real life problems for these psychologists, only psychological problems and pharmaceutical solutions. They don't believe in real life. Okay, so this was another situation. I started going over this stack in my other live, but I'm going to start again. I just started at the top. So Julie Washington took off Monday, assigned a lawyer without my consent. Spencer at the CMHA on Monday will not allow me to contact Julie Washington. Brittenwell on the phone with the Ministry of Health on Tuesday, March 17th. Okay, so she works for the Ministry of Health. I forgot. She doesn't work for the Canadian Mental Health Association. There's so many fucking different institutions that sort of control and govern the whole mental health system. It's fucking confusing as fuck. David Lang is not my choice of lawyer. I have been denied my rights because I explained in the last one how I opened my own file at the Ontario Legal Aid, where they would give me a number like this. They would give me a file number, and I would give that file number to a lawyer that I choose, and then the Ontario Legal Aid would pay that lawyer through that file number. So I opened my own file number, and then Julie Washington at the Canadian, at what's it called, the Ministry of Health, she opened a different file and canceled my file, and then picked a lawyer for me. I didn't like that. And this was my suggestion for, this is my drawing of Trillium 1 with the patient rooms here, washrooms, office. This is where all the nurses hung out. The phone was up here. That was my only communication with the outside world. So my suggestion was put a no loitering zone, put some tape on the floor, make it obvious that when I'm on the phone, I don't want the other patients crowding around me and having loud conversations and laughing at the top of their lungs and acting like retards. And then at the other end, there was the isolation room 102, double doors, washrooms, so they could keep this person completely isolated from the rest of the patients here. And most of the time there was not someone in the isolation room, so there was this empty corridor at the end. And I told them I want this to be a quiet zone because you couldn't get away from people talking loudly and laughing like crazy people and acting like sociopaths. So I wanted more space so there was less social interaction between all the patients. So I said we need a quiet zone here. Budget, 3 chairs, 1 shelf, 20 books. Put that in this little corridor here, and then everyone will have a little more space, a little more privacy and peace and quiet. And I was always making these suggestions to them. Let's see. Okay, so I even labeled some of these pages with page numbers because some of my notes were like up to 8 pages or 20 pages, who knows. This is my suggestions to the nurses because I was constantly having problems with other patients and telling the nurses and saying this is the solution to the problem, so I want you to do your job. I want you to go above and beyond, because they mostly just sat around and did nothing and read books and played Nintendo DS and yeah, that's what they spent most of their time doing. But I said, I want you to do real work and improve life for the patients. So I said, how to prevent troublesome situations instigated by sociopaths in T1. Awareness campaign regarding personal space, because people were constantly invading my space just for the sake of invading my space and to piss me off. No cost to create 2 new zones, a no loitering zone and a quiet zone. On page 2, create staggered dosing times so that multiple patients are not high at the same time. Because some of the patients got like kind of tipsy for the first hour after their dosing. So like after medication time, which was the same time 2 times a day for everyone, people would start like laughing and talking loudly and acting out. And so I said, yeah, schedule dosing times based on patient's preferred bedtime and sleep schedule, not all at the same time. Extend lounge hours to promote staggered bedtimes and dosing times to create a less crowded common space, because they would shut down the TV and turn off the lights in the lounge at 10 p.m. and a lot of patients were up all night like me. So they basically give the option of having absolutely nothing to do or going to bed. Your whole staff needs to be educated. Your whole staff needs education, rules for personal space. CTV W5 News Report, March 21st, 2026, about drug gang. In the KW area called Toronto, Hong Kong 20th. This is something I saw on TV, and I had to specifically request that time slot for the TV so they wouldn't change the channel to football or something stupid. My ex-landlord, Zunan Wang, meth head with an unregistered apartment. Page 4. I uploaded her crimes to YouTube and crimes from Guelph Building Department. Or where are the other pages? Some of this is out of order. Five. Zikun Wang, London, Ontario, Western University, arrested for firearms and explosives manufacturing. Was building a microwave weapon system. He looks like Zunan Wang and Hui Wu, my ex-landlords. And he lives 100 kilometers away. My YouTube shows EMF microwaves at high levels in my apartment. Search for DWB ELFD, which was my dual water bucket ELF detector. So I wanted to, I made them well aware of all the videos that I put on YouTube, and they never looked at one of them, or at least they never told me they did. I'm sure they actually did. Vazdev, Dr. MD, says Chinese people targeting me is delusion, schizophrenia. But he didn't look at a single minute of video of my YouTube account. Or at least he pretended like he didn't. It wasn't official. Vazdev is blocking me from internet access to cause me massive losses because he was a sadistic bastard. Homewood should fire Vazdev and release me to avoid liability. So that was a 10-page note, and I noted every page number. And I held every page up to every camera. I'd just walk up and down the hallways because there's fucking nothing to do there. Okay. These were some signs that I taped to the front window, so I believe they could be read from the sidewalk. There was like no method of communication there. I don't know. I should edit this guy's name out. What is this? I can't see what's going on here. So, in isolation, I was talking about, that was, try not to share names of other people here. Here was one, Nazi owned. There's little bits of tape on these ones because I'd taped them to the front windows where the people walking by on the sidewalk can see it. That the Homewood is Nazi owned. Fuck. If they gave me something more interesting to do, maybe I wouldn't spend all my time writing slanderous notes about them and showing them to every camera and taping them to the windows. They eventually stopped giving me tape. I was eventually banned from having tape. Dan Ambrosini did not respond to my request to be my lawyer. He was my judge. So that was another fucked up thing, is that I got a list of lawyers, and there was a guy named Daniel Ambrosini. There was Dan Ambrosini on the list, and I called him like 10 times and left 10 messages and said, I want you to be my lawyer, because there wasn't a whole lot of people to choose from. And I never got a response from this guy as a lawyer, but then he showed up as the judge at my CCB hearing, and he never even mentioned the fact that I called him like 10 times. He could have just called me back and said, actually, I'm going to be your judge, so I can't be your lawyer. And then he would have helped relieve some stress. Be a good idea if you're a judge and dealing with a mental health patient. This was some scribblings of a different person, which is why it is a different letter. This is someone else's. Sometimes other people would give me notes to add to my pile, or let me take their notes. I think some of this is mine and some of this is his writing. He wrote some weird stuff on here. Might at bedside or go, well, me, note, how look will he? Apartment with food from... most of what this guy wrote was gibberish. I think he's just messing with me. Julie is off today. Certificate of legal aid has been issued, but none has been added. So that was the only thing on that page that I wrote. The rest was other crazy person scribbles. This is sort of a list of the lawyers I was trying to choose from, but I don't really need to share that. Let's see. Friday, March 13th, I have been denied my rights. Day shift nurses and doctors refuse to print the Mental Health Act, an 80-page document. I need to legally defend myself. Did any of these, I thought some of these might have had a sticker on them, which means that they told me they would scan it into my mental health records, but they never actually did. Let's see. March 15th. Dr. Vazdev believes because I live alone, I would not be aware if I had a seizure. Oh, wait, this is a multi-page document with the numbers on top. Between 2015 and May 2023, I had 100 plus seizures, and I am an expert on seizures. Dr. Vazdev has read a few books on seizures and has spent 1 hour talking to me and 0 time researching my medical history. Dr. Vazdev also hates me. I told him it is a priority that I get online because I have many deadlines. He asked me, why can't you do that on Monday? Dr. Vazdev refuses to acknowledge. What's that? Page 6, page 7. Dr. Vazdev refuses to acknowledge deadlines. That is why he delivers 0 results and uses 5 p.m. as an excuse to avoid fulfilling obligations. It's just like, oh, I gotta go home. It's the end of the day. I can't do anything else for you. He also gets high on his own supply. That page pissed him off. I think he walked out of the room when I showed him this because I'd sit in my stupid psychological meetings, or whatever you call them, my doctor's appointments with this guy. I'd sit there and show him all the notes that I wrote during the past 24 hours. And then I'd show them to the camera too. And I'd take notes on the meeting as the meeting was happening and show them to the camera as the meeting was happening. So basically everything I wrote down that was happening was not in the doctor's notes. And this one, I read it. I showed it to him in the meeting and read it to him. And he walked out of the room after I read this down. Because this doctor, he's such like a big ego little man that he can't sit there and do his job, and you say anything bad about him, he acts like the high school boy. He's like, nope, I'm leaving. I win the argument because I'm a doctor. Let's see what this one says. Why does a simple ceiling speaker produce constant white noise? 7-inch round speaker from Laglash Research Networks, model LA1. Because one day when I was in the hallway, I'm a tall guy and I could just barely reach up and touch the ceiling. And I started poking at the ceiling speaker and just with my fingertip, and it wasn't mounted in properly, and it kind of rotated sideways so that I could see the whole loudspeaker, like it was like a PA system in a school where there's a speaker like every 15 feet or so in the hallway. But these ones, I don't know, they seem to have a lot more electronics than a standard speaker would have. Like normally, I think a PA system, you'd just have an amplifier and your speakers in the ceiling, but these were more than speakers. These had like some electronics worked into them in like a round housing. So yeah, I thought that was weird. And that was another thing, that pissed off the nurses. They said, "Hey, don't touch the ceiling speakers," and they called the maintenance guy. And there was nothing wrong with it. It was never mounted in properly, and I even fixed it. You just turn it and it sits back in its seat and faces downward. But I noted the manufacturer and model number, Laglash Research Networks model LA1, and I don't know. It's probably some like high-tech bullshit that they're like hidden technology. I don't know. Or, ways that they can manipulate the sound in the environment. There are 8 total in the ceiling and in the hallway of Trillium 1. So there's those ceiling speakers. There's 8 of them. Oh, this is part 2. I don't know where part 1 is. Lies and Failures of Dr. Vazdev, part 2. Did not ask my consent to talk to my parents on March 12th. I have spent a total of 80 minutes with my parents in the past 17 months. They are strangers to me. I have avoided every holiday and birthday. So he's asking the opinion of people that I barely talked to in almost 2 years. What's this? Peace bond, restraining order. That is another drawing of a different patient that they wanted to add. It looks like a boob, but they wanted to add that to my notes. So that was I think that was Kristen, the crazy chick that ate my sandwiches that drew that. Definition of professional. This is what I wrote. Definition of professional. Workday is over when your responsibilities are completed. You have a desire to finish your duties, not a desire for the clock to hit 5 p.m. Your salary is based on duties accomplished, not number of hours spent in the office. I call it incompetence. It is actually hate, resentment, discrimination, lack of education, motivation, and awareness of current events. Your job title should be terrorist. So this doctor made my life a living hell, and I decided that I would make his life as difficult as possible. This is one of the signs I hung on the wall. Sigma Aldrich owned the patent for glyphosate. They also distribute German chocolates packed in pill bottles to their clients every Christmas. So this is like my decorations that I made to make the place more interesting. There's more of it. Glyphosate was developed in 1950 by a pharmaceutical scientist, then sold to Monsanto and marketed as a herbicide. So those are good decorations for a mental health facility. Late in 2025, Ontario sprayed the forests surrounding the Great Lakes with glyphosate, which is water soluble and will poison the world's largest freshwater reserve. Incompetent Dr. Vazdev. This is the definition of impressionable. Okay, so that was my that was my draft copy, and then this is my big copy that I could show to the cameras. I'll read it just workday is over when your responsibilities are completed. You have a desire to finish your duties, not a desire for the clock to hit 5 p.m. Your salary is based on duties accomplished, not the number of hours spent in the office. Your incompetence has destroyed my life. March 15th. I call it incompetence. It's actually hate, resentment, and discrimination, lack of education, motivation, and awareness of current events. Your job title should be terrorist. So that worked out nicely. My draft copy copied over to big print nicely so I could hold it up to the camera and piss off the doctor. Prescriptions. Okay. Incompetent Dr. Vazdev's evil plan. Saturday, March 14th. Get me in a social situation that will end in violence. Restrain me physically and chemically. Appoint a substitute decision maker who hates me. Prescribe a pharmaceutical cocktail that will make me too stupid to sue the Homewood, Guelph Police Department, and Guelph General Hospital. March 19th. Page 1. This nurse yells at me for anything and everything. 12:30 a.m. March 19th. I told security about today at lunch. Stefan described Nurse Martina about him jacking off last night, which was this super creepy situation. Is this fucking other patient that I hated was like getting all close to the nurse and being like, I found a way last night to relieve stress when I was in my bedroom and I slept very well. And I yelled at him. I said, what the fuck are you telling that to the nurse for? Go shut the fuck up. So that's, yeah. It was disturbing. I was reporting it to security. Why would she initiate yelling at me for reporting a crime to a security guard? So yeah, I mentioned this the security guard. I was like, I think this one patient is really making this nurse feel uncomfortable because he was telling her about how he was jacking it last night. He didn't say that, but he was very subtle about it and very creepy. And I yelled at him, and the security guard yelled at me for telling him that. She yelled at me for requesting a printed copy of the Mental Health Act. She is incompetent and sadistic. 10 minutes after yelling no many times, she approached me and said, yes, we will print the Mental Health Act. Reason is, the argument was on the audio, argument audio was on John's CCB hearing and Stefan's phone call to legal aid at 10:20 a.m. March 17th on Tuesday. So I had this ridiculous argument with this nurse saying, no, we're not going to print the Canadian Mental Health Act for you. Even after I offered to pay for it, I ended up getting it printed along with the other legal documents by the librarian because she was the only person with any empathy or any human emotions, and the rest of them were all like Nazis. And yeah, so this guy, John, was at his own CCB hearing, and I think that was like the day before he got released, and that was the guy that never said anything to anybody, and I was kind of a little envious of his strategy. I should have just sat in a corner and said nothing. Actually, that's not true. This was kind of fun, pissing off the doctor every day. And this guy Stefan was on like a phone call to legal aid, and both those are things where the audio is recorded, even though the staff is used to having no audio recording and no record of what's happening. So that argument that I had with the nurse was on 2 audio streams that were being recorded. And then I think when they realized that, they said, oh, we should be nice to him so that people think we're being nice to patients here. Move from recent room 103. Your 24/7 nurse will have more. Let's see. I think these ones are out of order. All right. Angry Chinese brunette brunette nurse 2 times tried to yell at me for holding this sign up to 3 cameras in 15 seconds. So there's absolutely nothing to do in this place. So I'm making these papers and holding them up to the cameras. And the nurse yells at me for that. Move Maurice to empty room 103. Your 24/7 nurse will have more privacy and security. Anyway, there's this guy that was bedridden, who they moved in there like halfway through my stay. And they kept a nurse in there 24/7, and it was ridiculous because it's like the nurse would just keep this guy talking all the time. Like, this guy was kind of fucked. He had some real problems. I think he had PTSD, real bad. And he didn't really make much sense. But the nurse would just keep him talking, and he would just go on and on about all this crazy shit and say like the weirdest things, like and it would be 24/7. It'd be like 2 a.m, and the nurse and this guy would be talking loudly. He would be talking loudly because he's a crazy person, and she would be talking loudly because she's like a sociopath and just messing with him for nonstop. At least that's my opinion. She said, well, he likes talking. It makes him feel better. And this is what March 15th. Anthony Clark I've known me for 35 years. He is Dean of U of G and of Wilfrid Laurier. So that was contact him to vouch for my sanity. That was something I called the doctor, and it doesn't really matter. Homewood is Guelph's top-level escape room. The key is social manipulation. Some of these were just kind of like jokes, just like whatever. This was a note from another crazy chick. She was really out of her mind. And, well, she was drugged up as fuck. And she didn't speak English that well. I spoke to her a little bit. She walked into one of my CCB hearings and started just walking around the room and like walking into me. Like I had to like stand in the same spot, and she was trying to like push past me. And then I said, can someone please get this woman out of here? I don't want her touching all my notes, because I had all these papers spread out and organized so I could present them at the CCB hearing. And then the door opened to the office that I was in, that front office where the psychologist meets. And Dr. Vazdev pops in the door, and so did like 10 nurses. And they're all like, hey, get out of here. Get out of here, woman. And so it was kind of a weird incidents that happened on camera during my CCB hearing. And she wrote this note for me. She was interesting. She would hold my hand. Well, she did once, but she would hold my hand and ask me to repeat the Lord's Prayer after her. 26 vents on the roof to cool equipment. Okay, so this was a let's see, this is backwards, so I'll just stack these. Building across the road. Oh yeah, this is something I was going off about, is that the building, this what do you call it? The apartment building right across the road that you could see in the window of the front window of the Homewood Health Center had like those old Bell TV satellite dishes, which was one of the problems in my neighborhood. And they were part of the way the technology was hacked in the neighborhood. I think those were like the receivers for the fake cell phone towers that the criminals use. They'd have these old Bell satellite dishes on the side of their house. Some sort of covert technology worked into old satellite dishes. So if your neighbor has an old Bell satellite dish on the side of their house. They're probably doing something fucked up with it. And this is, I think, yeah, I taped these to the front window so that the people in the apartment building could see it. Satellite dish is the receiver. Building across the road has a cell phone interceptor. Satellite dish is the receiver. Heat from equipment melted the snow, so there was these melted sections on the ceiling or on the roof of the apartment building across the road. And there was also 26 vents in this apartment building roof, 26 vents on the roof to cool equipment, because I was going on about fake cell phone towers and how it works. And the apartment building right across the road that you could see through the front window, it showed a lot of these signs, so I just wrote it down and taped it to the window. And this was dual water bucket, extra low frequency detector. Check my YouTube, my personal physics experiment, dual water bucket, extra low frequency detector that detects EMF frequencies being broadcast experimentally by the U of G. So, I mean, even if I'm wrong about this, who gives a fuck? Oh yeah, here's a drawing from the crazy chick in that first bedroom, which I kind of like. That was this weird, it was actually quite accurate drawing of this light post, like this 3.5 foot high light post that sat outside the window of the institution. That was her. She wanted to add that to my notes. Actually, I think I traded her some food, I traded her like a sandwich for it, which is why there's sandwich on it. The light lantern lamp in front of TV noon in T1 of the Homewood Health Centre in Guelph, Ontario, Canada during winter. I started drawing that and I said, I want that to add to my notes. That's cool. So I think I traded her something. I can't remember. It was probably a sandwich. Requesting improvement budget. Doorstop silencer for 9 bedrooms. Cost 18 times. Papers 36 tapes. Okay, so I made every door in that entire Trillium 1 would make a loud slamming sound, which is what they wanted, because then they could slam the doors and wake up all the patients and keep them all sleep deprived every night. And there was those what do you call it, like those door closing suppressors, or what do you call them, like silencers, the door stop at the top, they don't work, so that made the door slam, or they weren't adjusted properly, which I offered to do. I said, let me work on these doors so they don't slam. I'll make them all close, dead silent. And I used some folded paper that was taped to, what's going on here? I'm hearing some door slam around here. I used some paper that was folded in, like, yeah, I think I folded the paper over to like origami to make like a thick piece, and then I would tape it into the door frame, and that would make the door close dead silently. So I said, let me just put these little pieces of paper in every door frame, and then we'll all have nice peace and quiet, and all the doors won't slam. But they don't want that. They want the doors to slam. So that pissed them off. This is a newspaper. Oh, this is my art. Mark Carney saying "Hail Satan." It was just a little. They only give you crayons, so. Prime Minister Mark Carney arrives on Parliament Hill with Nunavut's Lori Ilu, who crossed the floor to the Liberals Tuesday. Ilu is the 4th MP in as many months to join the Grits, who are now 2 seats shy of a majority pending 3 by-elections. I don't know what date this is from. But this was my only connection to the outside world, and some pretty good artwork, in my opinion. That was the crazy chick who ate my sandwiches. That's actually, so I got some papers from 3 different patients here that wanted to add some stuff to my notes. And this was I think that was my draft copy of my suggestions to make a no loitering zone and a quiet zone. And then I redrew it to make it more presentable. And this was some artwork that I did there. I drew this for one of the girls that drew some stuff for me. She drew some art for my wall. It says, I often don't remember, so I just keep writing and stacking papers. And key cards are for retards. Okay, so this is a multi-page note. What's going on here? Get 3 more. Okay, I guess this was one of my suggestions. I don't know if it's just through 3 pages. Non-violent, non-confrontation interaction with isolation room. Get 3 remote locks on the bedroom, washroom, and hallway. Key cards are for retards. So that was my summary of my idea that these guards should not be interacting with the people in the isolation room, which was it was just insane. It would be dinner time, so the person in the depending on who it was and their situation, they would just make it way worse because it would be their lunchtime. So to bring them lunch, they would get 3 security guards and 3 nurses, and they would all kind of go down there, and they usually acted like assholes and like instigators. And so I was that always pissed me off. And so I told them, why don't you just, the reason they did it, the whole reason they did this, have all these security guards and nurses to interact with the person in isolation, was because they use key cards to open the doors. So they need a person to physically go up to the door and use their key card and open it, which is why I said, get 3 remote locks on the bedroom, the washroom, and the hallway. And this was like that, where I drew it earlier. The isolation room down here, you put a remote controlled lock here, here, and here instead of key cards that a person needs to touch with their key. And then you can just have the nurse go in, put their food tray on the floor, and then leave, and then lock this door, and then they can use a little button and open this door, and then the person in the isolation room can go and get their food tray, and they don't need to have an interaction with 3 security guards and 2 nurses, which usually led to an argument or some social situation. Or that's how they, they want to be interacting with these people to try and get them in deeper shit. So obviously, if you just put some fucking remote locks on there, then you don't even have to interact with this person. Whereas if he has to go to the washroom, they fucking send 3 security guards in there to unlock this door and unlock this door, and then loiter there and act like assholes while he's going to the washroom, and then put him back in his room, lock that and lock that. Whereas they could just, the patient needs to go to the washroom, you just unlock that door with the remote locks. And then this door is still locked, so we can't go anywhere. And if he doesn't just go to the washroom, then go back to his door, and then you can start a situation with the security guards. And fuck, like, if I was running that place, there would actually be good decisions made there and improvements, but they don't want improvements. They want it to be, see, non-violent, non-confrontation interaction with isolation room. All you gotta do is put some remote locks on there. Key cards are for retards. Night Nurse. Oh yeah, this was just the lyrics to the drum and bass song. Because I would sing and whistle. Apparently, singing and whistling is also a sign of being a schizophrenic person to a doctor. But it's just something to kill the boredom because it's the fucking shittiest place ever. So I'd show this to the night nurse and sing it when I was in my room occasionally, just to piss people off. I don't want to see no doc. I need attendance from my nurse around the clock. There is no prescription for me. You're my only remedy. Night nurse, you're the only one who quenches my thirst. Dr. Vazdev abuses and angers his patients by promising results, then delivering zero results. Promises made and broken by incompetent Dr. Vazdev. I did not get moved to Trillium 2. Have a meeting with a lawyer. These are things that did not happen. Things that were promised to me. Did not have a meeting with a lawyer. Did not get access to my phone. Did not get access to the internet. Did not schedule a court hearing to dispute my diagnosis. Was unable to pay my bills online. What's this? Strictly. Oh. I think this is a good note. I gotta see if I can get all the pages lined up here. I don't know if it's all here. Some of the stuff's a little out of order. I was there for a whole month, shuffling these around and messing around. Okay. Homewood property value, $700 million, but can only afford one pack of crayons. Subvert employee who hates me. Evil plan. Plant a 24-pack of crayons to be a source of friction and manipulation. Only $3. So this is this Chinese nurse that always gave me problems. Like she would yell at me for absolutely anything. I have in my notes, my other notes, an instance where I took one of these notes and slid it under the gap in the door to the nursing station, so they wouldn't like pay attention to me or listen to my notes. So I just wrote it down, slid it under the door, and said, "Now you got my note." And she freaked out when I slid it under the door and said, "That's inappropriate. Why would you do that?" She starts freaking out over the stupidest little things. So Homewood, and so this describes how they have little 4-packs of crayons, and I asked for a pack of crayons, and I'm always asking for crayons and pencils and paper. Like I had to hound the nurses to actually get this much paper and pencils, because they'd give you these little golf pencils and they wouldn't give you a pencil sharpener. So you had you could write a page or a half a page or a couple pages, and then you'd have to go get new pencils. I was constantly asking them. And that was, they wanted people interacting with the nursing station. They wanted them constantly going back for snacks and little bits of this and that. So the Homewood property value is huge because that property is massive. It goes like right down to the river. It's a massive 20-acre property at least. It's huge. Probably bigger than that, like 40 or 50 acres. I don't know. But it's worth $700 million, and I was making fun of the fact that they only offered one pack of crayons. Because this nurse gave me a 24 pack of crayons, and I said, I'm not sharing them with anybody. I'm keeping these for myself. And I did. And she flipped out about that. She said, no, you have to share those crayons with all the other patients. And I was like, you're joking, right? Just go get another pack of crayons. It doesn't cost you a penny. It's a fucking pack of crayons. What are you arguing with me for? You'd rather have an argument with a mental health patient than just go get a fucking pack of crayons that you don't have to pay for, that your employer, who's sitting on a $700 million property, you don't think they can afford to spend $3 on a pack of crayons so that everyone has their own crayons and there's not patients going like, I want the purple one. Give me the purple one. But they want it to be like that. They want it to be like a fucking high school drama bullshit place where no one has their own personal space. So this is what I showed to the camera, describing that situation. That I think, okay, so they don't have 24 packs of crayons. The pack of crayons that I got were only available that one time, and there was never any other 24 packs. They went back to those little 4 packs that they give you at McDonald's when you buy a Happy Meal. So I think this crazy Chinese bitch nurse that hated me bought those, brought them to work, and intentionally gave them to me so that she could say, you have to share your crayons with the other patients. And then that would get me sitting with the other patients and arguing with the other patients and make my life shitty for only $3. Makes sense to me. Based on one incident 10 years ago that was instigated by, okay, this is a multi-page. I think this is the order. Okay, so there's 3 pages here. The psychologist at Guelph General Hospital gave me a 10-minute psychological evaluation after I waited 24 hours while being pushed around by police and stared at and harassed by Paladin security guards. He labeled me a violent person. I told him I want a second opinion. He said that he is the only psychologist and that I can talk to in 24 hours. He will reevaluate. I reported to patient relations. He was angry all day based on one incident 10 years ago that was instigated by the GGH security. He did the physical or the psychological evaluation with 5 security guards behind him staring at me and 3 nurses behind him as well. So during this asshole's psychological evaluation, they had like 5 security guards and 3 nurses standing there, standing daggers at me behind him. You think that is a good situation to be in while you're evaluating a mental health patient in the emergency room? Oh, man. People are retards. So this makes no sense because the situation makes no sense because the employee is a psychopath. Manpreet, who was like a 30-year-old, maybe 35-year-old Indian woman who had a grade 5 level of English and was acted like a total bitch and did things that made no sense, like this makes no sense, which is why I wrote it down, because like, why is she saying anything to me? Says Manpreet entered my room and says, "Oh, did you just go to the washroom? Is that what I smell?" And I don't know, I think I just farted or something. And I said, "What?" And she says, "Your lawyer called." So this is how she enters my room. I think I just let one rip, and she walked in right at that time and said, I don't know, just started acting like a crazy bitch. Fax to Bob Bernstein, who was my lawyer at the first CCB hearing, and I should have fired him because at least that way I would have got to do my own cross-examination. Please leave open washroom door if unoccupied. That was just something I hung on the washroom door. More wall art. Please leave open washroom door if. Here's some crayon art. I was watching NASCAR one night, so I thought I'd draw some NASCARs. Dr. Luther recommended medical director of the unit. Dr. Kang is the medical director of the unit. Attorney General appoints for parental guardian trust. Ministry of Health or Ontario government. I don't know, this is just some of my notes. There's so much weird shit that I was trying to figure out with the way they do things legally. I think that was just the end of this stuff. What's this? So some of these are getting to be more just documentation. Let's just see what this says. I have no idea. I really don't care. I have not written much in the past 30 hours or so. I have been abilified. Friday around 3 p.m. Vazdev force-fed me that pill. I did not journal that, but now that I have had 3 pills in 3 days, I'm getting dumber. Even printing is harder. I got a headache about 20 minutes after taking the pills. It lasts for up to 10 hours. Sheba, who is another crazy Indian nurse who barely speaks English. Sheba is insane. She threatens me with injection, yet has trouble taking my breakfast order. It was a difficult process this morning to get my breakfast order. 2 brown sugars, coffee double, extra creamer for the oatmeal. Simple, right? No, she was even dropping stuff. Like, she's like trying to make my breakfast, can't understand what I'm saying, she's like not even Tim Hortons level qualified, yet she's working at the Homewood Health Center as a nurse. Simple, right? No, she was even dropping stuff later today, bumping into walls. I've seen this girl bumping into walls. She barely speaks English and is threatening me making new rules to create problems for me, and in charge of medicating me. So that's the other problem. This woman has a grade fucking 5 level of English, and she's reading medication orders and giving medication to patients. It's fucking insane. Because, I mean, all those medications, they have like ridiculous names with 20 letters, and I can't even pronounce them. And why would you hire someone who doesn't barely speaks English to be able to have that responsibility? It's insane. She already gave me my second dose only 16 hours after my first dose. Every interaction with her is a problem. I'm going to make a bullet point journal on the next page. Try to remember all the bullshit that has happened in the last 36 hours. I've not written much because I've been abilified, headaches, and angry nurses waking me up by talking loudly and slamming doors. Also, loud laughing. Friday, March 20th, CCB hearing force-fed a pill by Vazdev. Woke up by nurses talking to Maurice, and I made a complaint. They started loud whispering to piss me off. I did the same too. Thanks for whispering. When people like whisper really loudly, that's what these nurses started doing, and it was the creepiest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Because that's what I asked them to stop talking so fucking loudly and like waking up all the patients in the unit, and they started going, "Oh, were you on vacation last weekend? How was that going?" And that just was the creepiest thing I ever heard. They're fucking nuts. Saturday, you can visit parents. Yelling at Steve for walking behind me, because that was another thing that happened daily or like hourly. Is there was these two big guys, Steve and John, that walked up and down the hallway nonstop. Like they would walk up and down the hallway for 2 hours at a time sometimes, and they would do it multiple times a day for at least like 20 minutes at a time. And when I would walk past them, they would immediately turn around. Like usually they would walk the whole length of the hallway, all the way from the front to the back. But when I would walk past them halfway down the hallway, they would quickly turn around and walk like 2 or 3 feet behind me just to piss me off and start a situation. And that was never documented in any of Dr. Vazdev's notes, even though it happened many times a day. And it started many confrontations. Like I started, what did I start? Like I'd started arguing with these guys and yelling at them, telling them to get the fuck out of my personal space and quit their little trick of turning around as soon as I walk past them and then walking the opposite direction and walking right behind me, because they're fucking insane. And some of that almost led to a fist fight. And my solution was, when they started pissing me off, especially Steve wore those crazy person yellow socks that they give you in the mental institution. Or no, John wore the yellow socks, and Steve wore bare feet everywhere, which was against the rules. And I told him that. I said, make that fucker put on shoes or socks, because it's actually against hospital policy for him to be walking around in bare feet. And like doing this habit of walking, turning around and walking behind me just to piss me off. So my solution was when he pissed me off, I would go wash my hands in the sink. There's a sink in the hallway. And then I would throw water all over the floor, splash the floor, or like flick some water on the floor, depending how much he would piss me off, would be how much water I would splash on the floor, just so he's walking on a wet, hard floor. And that actually worked quite well. It really pissed him off, and it would stop him from repeating that same behavior. 1 p.m. parents, snack time. Shortly, nurse assessment. Has a shark tattoo, and Franco is released from isolation. Bothered, disturbed, agitated, vision, Flooded. Raging out. Oh fuck! That was a code sequence for an email that I signed up for. I signed up for Atomic Mail or something like that, like an email service. When I finally did get on the internet, but it didn't help at all because it was. I got on the While I was in Trillium 2, they let me on the internet, and I couldn't do any of my banking or do anything because all those sites were like blocked out. Or they wouldn't give me my fucking wallet, right? Like they said, okay, we'll let you on the internet. And I said, I got to do my banking. I need my wallet. And they said, well, you can't have your wallet because patients aren't allowed to have their wallet. And I said, well, I need it so that I can do my banking. All my information is in my wallet. And they said, well, too bad. So I was on the internet, but I wasn't allowed to do my banking because they wouldn't give me my wallet, which is just added to my problems. Anyway, so that was like a code sequence in case I lost my password to Atomic Mail. It's not ranting or anything. Too much gear, overcoming point. I can't pick myself up. I can't remember. This is just like some train of thought that I was. Security, and this are all. Oh yeah, this is when I found in one of their little meeting rooms in Trillium 2, and I was only in Trillium 2 for 5 days because it was so bad because they left me with that. They gave me that crackhead roommate, so I was like taking me back to T1. I ended up having to start a situation with my roommate. I had a very loud verbal argument and threw something at the floor to make a loud noise. I threw my butter knife at the floor and started yelling at the guy because he was pissing me off so much. And they put me in isolation and sent me back to Trillium 2. But that's why I did it. I was like, I asked them to bring me back to Trillium 2 or to Trillium 1 because I didn't want to be the roommate of a crazy crackhead. So, and someone had told me that if you like act out, it was actually Franco, the guy that was in isolation for 27 hours with no clothes and no food and being harassed by security guards and basically tortured. Apparently he got put in Trillium 1 isolation because in Trillium 2 he picked up a desk and threw it out a window, and so that was his punishment, as being sent back to T1. So I knew that, and I was like, well, I gotta do something fucked up, and I hate this place, so I'm gonna throw my butter knife at the floor and scream at my roommate for a while. So they put me in isolation and sent me back to Trillium 1. Let's see. I don't know. I think I might have to do a part 2 because I'm getting hungry. Getting tired, but that was a lot of my notes are like more detailed here. I think this is the last half of that stack. Substitute Decision Act notes. So this was like some different points in when I was reading through some of these legal documents that I thought I should bring up at the Consent and Capacity Board. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble. I'll have to get this. I'll get my lighting better. Like, I can't do this. All right, I got my light tucked under my shoulder, but this is, I don't know, just a whole bunch of more detailed notes and stuff like getting prepared for those consent and capacity board hearings. But I'm definitely needing a break, so I think I don't know if I'm going to do a part 2 tonight. Probably not. That was enough fun for one night. But it gives a pretty good idea of what it was like for me in the Homewood Health Center. It was fucking hellish and one of the worst months of my life. And I could talk for days about this, man. Like the shit that happened to me there. Even just like the individual situations and things that I talked about with different people and some of the shit that some of the other people were going through. Yeah, it's nuts. Hi, how's it going? Hey, looks like I got a comment finally. What's happening with my phone? All right. I've been on here for 1 hour and 11 minutes. Yeah, I definitely need a break because this it's not too easy to do in a vehicle. It'd be easier if I had a nice desk and a big high-tech setup, but I'm gonna deal with what I got. I'll keep that stack separated and I'll try to finish that one of these days. Actually, let's see what's in some of these other stacks. I think I have a stack that's just like art and drawings, just basic shit. And I'll show a few of these just for shits and giggles. Okay, so this is my stack of like crayon drawings and just stuff to occupy my time. Let's see if I can find anything interesting. Maybe it's not all drawings. This is all stuff from the hearing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do this some other time. I'm too tired and too unorganized to really do a good job of this. What's this? Weird. Yeah, that's about all I got for tonight, so I will upload the rest of my crazy notes from the Nut House some other night. Nice talking to y'all. Have a good night.